Leon fell into a deeper sleep than usual that night. As he unconsciously closed his eyes, he felt his body becoming lighter and his mind drifting beyond the dream. First silence, then the sound of a gentle breeze, followed by strange shapes appearing in the sky. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in the middle of an endless corridor. On sides of the corridor were doors that seemed endless. Each door had different symbols on it. One was an old hourglass, another a spinning star, and another resembled a cracked mirror. Although Leon didn't know what he was looking for here, his instincts told him he had to make a choice. As he approached one of the doors, his hands involuntarily started to push it. Suddenly, the door swung wide open, and Leon found himself in a completely different place, a misty city paved with old stones. The sky was gray. There was a mystical scent in the air. People were walking silently with heavy steps. Leon noticed an old man standing in front of him. He realized that she was watching him. The man's hands were trembling, but his eyes shone with deep wisdom. "Like every traveler who comes here, you too are trying to understand time," said the man. "This is the city of those who cannot feel time. There are no moments here, only the weight of existence is felt." Although Leon couldn't fully understand what he meant, he felt there was something strange about this place. There was neither a smile nor fear on people's faces. Everything seemed frozen. "How can I get out of here?" Leon asked. The old man shook his head. "You can't leave without feeling time. Everyone here has lost time. If you can find it, you can continue on your way." As Leon wandered the streets of the city, in a world where time was lost, he noticed how everything had become stagnant. A child had thrown a ball into the air on the street, but the ball never fell to the ground. A man had reached out his hand to a woman, but he never touched her. Everything here seemed to be suspended in the moment. Suddenly, he found an old clock on one of the streets. But this clock was not an ordinary clock. The minute hand wasn't moving, but a faint light was seeping out of it. When Leon picked up the clock, suddenly things began to change. The people around him started to move. The ball began to fall to the ground. The man started to touch the woman. Time was returning. The old man appeared in front of Leon once more and smiled. "You brought back time. Now you can continue on your path. But remember, time is just a tool. You cannot own it. You can only move with it." Holding the clock, Leon walked towards the door. The door opened slightly, and he found himself back in the corridor. But this time, the weight inside him had lessened. His mind had become clearer. There was still much to discover. As Leon continued walking down the corridor, he saw a door with a shining sun symbol on it. When he pushed the door open, he found himself inside an ancient temple. The temple was surrounded by columns, and there were ancient inscriptions on the walls. As Leon wandered inside, he heard an echoing voice. The echoes of the past continue to live here. As he moved towards the source of the voice, he saw a giant pool of water. The surface of the water was smooth, but when he looked into it, images from the past began to appear. First, he saw a young man holding a stone tablet engraving writings. The man's face was serious. He was making a note in time. Suddenly, the image changed and he saw the same man aged. He saw the tablet in his hand break. "Time makes everything forgotten, but the traces always remain," said an echoing voice. When Leon touched the edge of the pool, he felt the emotions of the past, lost memories, unfinished words, and forgotten stories came to life in his mind. Without getting lost in the past, he realized he needed to get out of there. He closed his eyes and threw a stone onto the surface of pool. The moment the stone touched the water, The echoes of the past disappeared and the door opened again. Leon turned back and stepped into the corridor. Now another door appeared in front of Leon. There was a bright star symbol on the door. When he opened the door, he found himself in a massive library. But this library was not ordinary. The books on the shelves were constantly moving, changing places on their own. Just as he reached out to take a book, a shadow appeared. "Does the uncertainty of the future scare you?" asked the shadow. Leon stepped back, but his curiosity didn't stop him. "The future is an unwritten book," said the shadow. "But some want to see things in advance." The shadow handed Leon a book. The cover of the book was blank. When Leon opened the pages, he saw moments from his own life. But these moments were constantly changing. In one scene, he was embarking on a great adventure. In another, he was like a solitary traveler. The shadow whispered, "Choices shape the future. Your path is still being written." Leon closed the book and took a deep breath. "I don't want to know my future. I just want to live it the best way I can," he said. At that moment, the shadow smiled and disappeared. The door opened again and Leon returned to the corridor. Leon had now seen different aspects of time, echoes of the past, the value of the present moment and the uncertainty of the future. He realized that time was not just a unit of measurement, but also a journey. He walked down the corridor one last time. As the doors closed behind him, his mind cleared. When he opened his eyes, it was morning. But now time held a completely different meaning for him. And the next night, when Leon slept again, new doors awaited him. A night among the stars, a traveler of the sky. Another night had fallen. The streets of the town were silent. The lights of the houses were going out one by one. Everyone who closed their eyes was surrendering themselves to the arms of sleep. But for Leon, this night was different from the others. As he was falling asleep, he felt as if he was gliding towards the sky. A soft melody echoed in his ear. It was like the whisper of stars coming from afar. After a while, he realized he was indeed rising. His bed was already left behind. His feet had lifted off the ground. As he passed through an endless darkness, a slowly illuminating landscape appeared. Millions of stars were shining around. Their lights were dancing. The sky was deep and infinite, yet he felt no fear here. Was this a dream or another reality? As Leon glided through the stars, he heard someone calling out to him. When he turned, he saw a figure covered in lights. This was the guardian of the stars. To, with a bright robe and silver eyes, he smiled at Leon. "Welcome, traveler," said the guardian. "Here are the stars. Brightest stories of the stars here." Leon nodded excitedly. The guardian raised his hand and in front of them a star began to glow slowly. At that moment, Leon felt himself being drawn into the star, suddenly found himself inside a memory from long ago. A sailor was sitting on the deck of his ship, looking out over the endless ocean. The sky was reflected on the water, and the stars seemed to be swimming in the sea. The sailor had braved storms and discovered unknown islands. But his greatest dream was to reach the sky. That's why he looked at the stars every night, trying to unravel their secrets. Leon felt his desire for exploration. "Each star carries a memory," said the guardian, "and tonight you will hear the most beautiful stories." Thus, Leon began to move from star to star, filled with different memories. He started to discover stories. Sometimes he heard songs composed by a bard. Sometimes he witnessed a land seen for the first time by an explorer. When he entered a star, he found himself in the middle of a desert. The sands were shining like gold. The sky had turned an orange hue. A traveler placing his backpack on the ground, was examining maps guided by the stars. He had traveled for years, but the stars, whispered to him by the stars. Leon felt the curiosity and hope within the man. On another star, there was an old sage who had studied the sky for years and discovered that each star held a memory. "There is a star waiting for me," he told Leon. "I don't know what is hidden inside it, but I have dedicated my life to finding out." Leon shared the sage's excitement, and together they moved towards the light. As Leon advanced, on a scale never seen before, he encountered star clusters unseen before. Some were silent, while others were like vibrating notes, emitting melodic lights. When he entered inside a star, he encountered a massive library. Here, stories collected from every corner of the universe were written on countless scrolls. The smell of old paper carried the deep traces of time. When Leon opened a book, he saw the birth and demise of a civilization inside. The memory of the stars was preserving every corner of the universe. Then Leon saw golden-colored dust swirling inside a star. Whispers were rising from within the star, each telling a different story. One carried an ancient secret about the beginning of time. Another, describing what happens when stars lose their light. It was a forgotten legend. In another star, he followed the traces of a time traveler. This traveler had gotten lost in time, collecting stories from the past and the future, and whispered them to the stars. As Leon heard his stories, he felt how time was actually in a cycle. As Leon progressed, he encountered beings from different planets. Some stars sang songs in unknown languages, while others whispered unheard melodies. Inside a star, dreaming while looking at the sky, there was another traveler. That traveler, like Leon, was searching for a place beyond the stars. Leon drifted through a vast star map. Here, every star had a story. Every planet had a different past. It was like an infinite library. Some books were written with beams of light. Some memories were hidden within colorful gas clouds. Leon completely forgot about time for a moment. Slowly, the time Leon spent among the stars came to an end. The guardian slowly raised his hand to signal. "Your time is up, traveler. But remember, you can always return here." Leon closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt himself gliding back down. His eyelids grew heavy. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his bed. When morning came, he opened his eyes and looked at the sky with a slight smile. He now knew that the stars were not just made of lights. And that night, the stars seemed brighter than ever. Leon now knew that there was a star that told a new story every night, and he would continue to listen to these stories. And maybe one day his own star would shine. That night, as Leon looked at the sky, he felt a star wink at him. One day his story would be told within that star. Leon fell into a deep sleep again that night. But this time the dream was not an ordinary one. A light emerging from the surrounding darkness was almost pulling him towards it. As he began to gently glide, a path appeared beneath his feet. The path was made of winding stones, and on either side, enchanting columns illuminated with golden lights were rising. Leon began to follow the path stretching out before him. The air was denser and softer than the air in the real world. A melody coming from afar filled him with peace. But after walking for a while, he realized that the path was not straight, was not going. It was turning around itself, forming a labyrinth. This labyrinth was not an ordinary structure, defying the flow of time and space. A magical place. As Leon advanced within the labyrinth, he saw a light flickering on a wall. As he approached, the light transformed into a door. On the door was written the echo of memories. Curiously, he opened the door, and as he stepped inside, he found himself in a moment from the past, within a memory. It was his childhood home, his room, his toys, the old posters on the walls. Everything was so realistic that, for a moment, Leon forgot he was dreaming. In a corner, he saw his childhood self. Little Leon was watching the stars through the window. An old man sitting beside him was telling him stories about the stars. "Memories are indelible, Leon," said the man with a wise smile on his face. "But when forgotten, their echoes fade. When someone remembers them, they come back to life." When Leon heard these words, he realized that some memories don't fade with time. But if one doesn't remember them, they seem to be lost. When he realized this, he too began to fade slowly. When he returned to the labyrinth, the walls had changed a bit more. Now a different door had appeared. On the second door, it read Mirror of Fears. When he stepped inside, he entered a room covered with reflective surfaces everywhere. At first, he only saw his own reflection. But after taking a few steps, different images began to appear in the mirrors. In one, there was a lonely child. In another, a dark figure was looking at him. "Are you ready to face your fears?" whispered a voice. Leon took a deep breath. To overcome his fears, he had to see and accept them. As he wandered inside the mirrors, the images slowly began to fade. When he came to the last mirror, he only saw himself. But this time he was stronger. He realized that he hadn't succumbed to his fears. The door opened again, and Leon returned to the labyrinth. But now the fears inside him were not as strong as before. He headed towards the next door. This time, on the door, it read Library of Infinity. When he entered, he encountered a massive library with a ceiling that couldn't be seen. The shelves stretched out in corridors that seemed infinite. Each book contained stories of the past, the present, and the future. When Leon picked up a book, the pages opened by themselves and light emanated from them. As he read, he began to see the lives of different people. Some were happy, some were sad, but each carried a meaning. "Every story transcends time," said a voice. "You can't write the future without understanding the past." As Leon examined the books, he thought that his own story was somewhere here too. But he didn't know on which page. He slowly put the book back in its place and saw the door open again. He had taken a long journey inside the labyrinth. He had seen his memories, his fears, and the stories of time. Now he headed towards the exit door. When he passed through the door, he found himself back in his room. It was morning, but the effects of the dream were still within him. He turned his eyes to the sky and thought, "Maybe I'll return to this labyrinth every night. And each time, I'll discover a little more about myself." And every time Leon fell asleep, new doors awaited him. That night, Leon once again unconsciously surrendered himself to the arms of the dream. But this time, when he woke up, he was in a place where there was no sky. When he opened his eyes, he realized he was surrounded by an endless ocean on all sides. Silver waves were gently stirring. When the moonlight hit the surface of the water, the sea looked like a shining mirror. When he looked around, he saw massive islets gliding over the water, each one suspended in the air, disappearing into the reflections of the ocean. Leon felt the water beneath his feet solidify. He was no longer sinking. The sea was gently carrying him. Leon began to walk towards the nearest islet. When he stepped onto it, the surface of the islet was covered in mist. The mist carried voices whispering from the past, echoes of childhood memories, lost dreams and unfulfilled wishes. It seemed to be suspended here. As he moved forward, he saw a large tree. Its branches were covered with leaves shining like gold. When he plucked a leaf from the tree, an old memory came to life in his mind. A little boy was making a wish while looking at the stars. Leon realized that this boy was himself, but he had forgotten what his wish was. A voice rising from the tree whispered, "Unfulfilled dreams are never forgotten, they just wait. If you remember them, they come to life again." Leon felt his old dreams coming back to life. As the mist slowly cleared, the island disappeared and Leon returned to the sea. This time he saw a tall lighthouse in front of him. But the lighthouse's light was not on. When he slightly opened the door, a heavy silence dominated inside. Inside, there was only an old man sitting. The man looked at Leon and spoke softly. "Some dreams lose their way, just like this lighthouse that has lost its light. It takes courage to illuminate them again." Leon climbed to the top of the lighthouse. When he reached the top, a key appeared in his hand. When he placed the key into the lock at the center of the lighthouse, suddenly a powerful light burst forth and illuminated the entire sea. Leon, lost in the darkness for his dreams too, realized he needed such a light for his dreams as well. As the lighthouse's light rose, Leon set off towards the next island. On the last island, there was a long bridge paved with stones. Start of the bridge, there were beings in long robes. Faceless beings were standing there. One of them whispered, "This is the land of the Dream Watchers. Everyone who passes through here must know what their deepest dream is." Leon thought about what his greatest dream was, but he just couldn't remember. One of the Watchers gave him a mirror. "Look and see." When Leon looked into the mirror, scenes from the past appeared. Moments when he wanted to explore the stars as a child. Days when he dreamed of embarking on great adventures. They were all here in this mirror. Leon now knew that dreams could turn into reality as long as they are remembered. The bridge slowly began to rise, and Leon found himself over the sea again. As Leon continued on his way, he suddenly reached an island where time stood still. Everything here was motionless. The trees weren't swaying in the wind. The water wasn't rippling. There was a large clock tower in the middle, but the hour and minute hands weren't moving. Leon moved towards the tower, and when he opened its door, he saw a woman inside. The woman spoke while looking at the sky. "This is the place for those who choose to stop time. Some people want to stay in their memories. Some are afraid to move forward, but time cannot be stopped. Do you want to set it in motion again?" Leon knew that time needed to keep flowing. He touched a large hourglass standing in the tower. As the sands began to move, the island came to life again. The trees began to rustle. The water started flowing again. The woman smiled and disappeared. One last island appeared before Leon. This island was different from the others. It was covered in a completely white light. There was a large door in the middle. As Leon approached the door, he heard a familiar voice from inside. "Dreams are endless, but each eventually turns into an awakening. Now it's time to wake up." Leon opened the door and closed his eyes in a flood of light. Leon floated on the water and closed his eyes. He took a deep breath and felt light. As the sound of the sea faded away, he slowly began to wake up. When he opened his eyes, it was morning. But this time the feeling inside him was different. Now he knew that dreams weren't just things that happened at night. If he believed in them and remembered them, they could become real during the day too. And when Leon fell asleep again, the seas of dreams were waiting for him. When Leon opened his eyes, he found himself in a completely different world. The darkness of the night surrounded him. But this was no ordinary night. The sky was filled with massive, shimmering cities. Bridges made of stars were connected by beams of light. Leon saw massive towers gliding among the stars. And at the top of these towers, there were roads stretching into infinity. In the boundless sky city, every building seemed to carry the memory of a star. Leon looked beneath his feet, at the slowly moving paths of light, and felt as if there was a call within this world. He didn't know why he had come here, but deep down he felt that something was waiting for him. When Leon stepped onto a bright path that appeared before him, lights flickered beneath his feet. As he walked along the avenue, he saw shadows gliding past him. They were like echoes of the past, each carrying the memories of travelers, carrying memories of travelers. Suddenly, an old sage approached him, wearing a long, light-emitting robe. "Stars carry forgotten stories, Leon," said the sage. "Here, everything bears the traces of a soul that once existed. So, are you ready to find your own story?" Leon nodded. As he continued on his way, he came across 3 doors, each glowing in a different color. One was silver, one was gold, and the other was emerald green. Leon instinctively chose the silver door and stepped inside. Inside was a vast hall. Star particles floating in the air reflected dreams from the past. These memories were unfulfilled dreams. When Leon touched one of the stars, a scene came to life. A small child was making a wish while looking at the sky. But this wish had never come true. Leon saw himself in this scene, watching his wishes suspended in time. A strange sadness filled him. A voice echoed, "Unfulfilled dreams don't disappear, Leon. They are reborn when remembered again. Do you want to relive these dreams?" Leon thought for a moment. Then, with a feeling inside, he returned to the door. The sage nodded with a smile. "You must continue to write your story." Leon headed towards the second door. When he passed through the door, he found himself in a music hall. But the music here was not ordinary music. The stars were singing. Their melodies hit his ears like echoes spread over time. In the center, there was a large crystal sphere. The sphere carried the whispers of every star. When Leon approached it, he heard his own voice. "Could I be a star too?" Leon paused for a moment. He thought about the dreams he had as a child. He wanted to leave a mark in the universe, to be unforgettable. As the music of the stars grew louder, a light rose from within him. "Everyone can be a star," he said. A voice said, "as long as you want to discover your own light." With this awareness, Leon returned to the door. When he reached the last door, he saw a gigantic clock tower inside. But this tower was not an ordinary tower. It contained time itself within it. The hour and minute hands were constantly moving, but sometimes it slowed down, sometimes it sped up. When Leon stepped inside the clock, the past, the present, and the future were experienced simultaneously. For a moment, he saw himself as a child, then as a traveler in the future. Every moment was interconnected. Leon realized that time was not a single line. Moments were moving in an infinite loop. The sage appeared once more and said to him, "You cannot be the master of time, but you can move with it. How you want to write your own story, you decide." Leon took a deep breath. It was time to wake up. The door opened and in a flood of light, he found himself back in the real world. Leon opened eyes. It was morning. But this time the feeling inside him was different. He now knew that dreams were not just things that happened at night. If he believed in them and remembered, they could be real during the day too. and when Leon fell asleep again, the City of Stars was waiting for him.